solutions. And today on this podcast webinar, we'll be talking about the top 10 AI platforms and their purpose. He's the lead manager and CEO of Elevate Services Group. Evan and I are in a peer group together. We meet together every quarter, and he's one of the sharpest minds in AI, artificial intelligence, that I've met. So we'll talk about the purpose of artificial intelligence, top 10 platforms. Evan will go through that, and then your checklist for implementation excellence with AI. But let's talk about what is AI, artificial intelligence. I submit it is your friend. It is your consultant. I think we're all on this journey. I'm a technologist and been in the industry for over 30 years. And new technologies, we learn how to use them. We're all on this journey. And I submit, it is your friend. It is your direct consultant.
Noise suppression is on.
And yesterday.
Background noise only. Okay.
I'll ask Jody and Brittany to mute respective listeners. Thank you. Yesterday in a meeting, Brian Sweat said, AI is like a bad intern. Yeah, that makes sense. It has a lot to learn. It hallucinates. Yesterday in the Wall Street Journal, and I have the article right here, Saturday edition, is a story about AI hallucinating. And the title of the story is Chatbot Fueled Delusions Ending in a Murder-Suicide. That's tragic, but absolutely these large language models will learn who you are. And if you're deluded, it will learn that also. That's a problem. It's like a bad intern, has a lot to learn. It hallucinates. But I submit that AI is nothing more than a relentless march of technology, moving from scripting to workflows to programming to applications. And really it's moving from if-then statements, programming, if-then, 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 to I'll decide, the computer will decide. It is a giant leap, but it is a natural progression of technologies. That's what I submit. So I have 3 open tabs today. I suggest this to you. Start using AI. And I use Chrome and I use Edge for business. I log into Edge. And I have a tab open up automatically, Copilot, and ChatGPT open up automatically, and Gemini. So I can go to any one of these if I'm looking for a business or a personal answer and get the answer. But what is the purpose of AI? Hey, it's exciting. Let's do it. Why? I submit that executives, owners want 4 things. They want to improve productivity and efficiency. Are there any tools from a steam engine to an ERP PSA package, any tools, technology that can help me move and be more efficient, move faster, be more efficient? Secondly, executives want to make sure we're profitable, sustainable. Are we paying the bills? We're not going bankrupt? Innovation, how am I different than the competitors in my industry? Could I differentiate? And then lastly, and maybe most importantly, risk mitigation. That's what executives want. So when we talk about AI, the purpose of AI, automation, is automation. Can I apply this technology to help me be more productive, more profitable, and manage risk? So I will now turn it over to Evan, who will get into the top 10 AI platforms.
Thanks, Mike. I just wanted to quickly submit an additional definition on AI, which is, I just think of it as it's machines that are now capable of doing work that usually require a human. You think learning, you think problem solving, and so that's really what I think of AI, is now these machines can do these things that doesn't require a human. Now, I still think human in the loop is the right way to take advantage of AI, but that's really, I feel like, just my simple way of describing AI. On this Moore's Chasm, Jeffrey Moore wrote this marketing book, 35 years ago, and I feel like it's a good way to kind of describe where AI is. It's the big topic of AI is too much to plot, where it is. But it's the individual platforms, or it's the individual use cases that AI is, in some place on Jeffrey Moore's, sort of chart here. And so, like, I would submit that, ChatGPT came out 3 years ago, or it's just about to be 3 years ago, and it quickly moved through to where I would say it's now you're in the late majority, or you're clearly past, because it's just being used by everyday consumer life, and even in enterprise and business, it's still being used. But where I would submit we're still in the innovators or the early adopters is the actual business benefit, being able to tie AI and the measures to what you were just saying, profitability and risk and some of these areas. So that's where I would say that the chasm still has yet to be crossed. I think until business can get confident that AI is going to be targeted in this way, or can be measured in this way, I think it's going to continue to just take some time. I think it was fascinating to hear, and we're going to get into the Salesforce one, the agentic AI, but that, Salesforce, I think it was Benioff that said, he doesn't need as many heads in customer support. He had 9,000 heads. He's now down to 5,000 heads. And so you could say, and he is saying exactly, the agentic AI is the reason or the cause for that. We're just not hearing a ton of these data points yet. We hear them a little bit here and there, but I think the more we hear some of these data points come out, I think that's when we're going to find that we're on the other side of the enterprise AI chasm. So let's talk through some of these tools. Of course, how do you start with AI? Do you want to advance it there, Mike? Without talking about the one that kind of set the whole world ablaze, ChatGPT, which is an OpenAI product. It clearly is the conversational AI leader. That's really sort of a good thing to have in mind when you're looking at these platforms and tools. Which ones are conversational and which ones are foundational models for developers and coders and things like that. But ChatGPT came out, everybody just started to, it was so accessible and it was so easy because it is conversational. And it's interesting that, Mike, that you would say that you have it open as just a default on yours. I'm using my phone and my tablet all the time, and it's now made the first screen of my phone and my tablet because I'm just going into it all the time.
Yeah, so Evan, that's a good point. And we're all on this journey, and I'm maybe I'm a slow adopter, but I remember 3 weeks ago, a consultant we work with said, have you had a conversation with ChatGPT? And he told the story. He took a 1-hour walk and conversed with ChatGPT for 1 hour. And he asked it about tariffs and started conversing about the ramifications of tariffs on the economy and the stock market. Eventually, toward the end of the walk, he got to asking it, well, what mutual fund would you recommend based on tariffs and the economy and what's happening? And it recommended a mutual fund. In a verbal conversation, I was shocked. Okay, I haven't had verbal conversations with my friend, my consultant AI. And he went back and researched the stock when he got back to his house and bought some of the mutual fund. I mean, this conversational thing is new and different to me.
Yeah. Then Google followed pretty quickly. Initially, it was Bard, and then Bard got rebranded to Gemini. And so it's very similar to a ChatGPT. It's conversational. But the thing that Gemini is doing quite well is what's called multimodal. And really, that just means it can take images and video and unstructured data and incorporate it with the conversation. And it is typically seen, I think, right now as the market leader for being able to reason through all of the data that you can upload in different forms of that data. Again, it's pretty easy to get to. You're just going straight to Google Gemini. If people are Google Suite, you're going to see Gemini embedded in a lot of the Google Suite tools. Claude is a really interesting one that you see a lot in higher learning or research institutions. It presents itself or talks about itself being very safe. You had mentioned illusions. You had mentioned some of the damage that can be done. I read that article too. Well, Claude is from Anthropic, is a platform that is attempting to mitigate some of the risk. Is it perfect? Probably not. But it's developing quite a bit of adoption in the education area, just because of its the way that it's trying to present a safe option. So if people are concerned about the illusion effect, or misreferences or making up data, things that can happen on all of these AI platforms, Claude is a good one to go to escape that. So you want to go ahead and Grok. It's Elon Musk. What can you say, right? It's conversational. If you let Elon tell you about Grok, he's going to say it's the best. It's certainly able to have all of the X integration, formerly Twitter. So it depends. I don't want to make this conversation about Elon Musk, but it is certainly a very valid platform. It's informed from the many sources. And so I think it's one of those where you just have to kind of get used to it. It does have a little bit of flair to it, I would say. And so did ChatGPT. Actually, they've been able to take some of that out over some of these releases, like with GPT-5. Cohere, which I believe is now fully owned by Oracle. I may have that wrong, but I know Oracle is an investor in them. This is really being added to enterprise functions. So if you think about financial platforms, like a NetSuite, for example, Cohere is the AI that's embedding into many of these enterprise tools and enterprise platforms. Llama is from Meta, or former Facebook, and this is now a foundation model where you are getting a developer involved. Llama, Mistral, which is going to be on the next page. I included a couple of these because developers are finding a ton of benefit, amazing amount of efficiency in generating code using these foundation models. And so Llama has been out for a couple of years now, and it is one of the leaders. Amazon has its Bedrock, which I'll talk about in a second. And so it depends on kind of where your data is and where your systems are running, which one of these foundation models you want to run. You want to go to the next. So Mistral, it's again, it's an open source. It's European, and so it's starting to, again, it's a foundation model, so it's starting to present options for developers and coders to be able to be that much more effective and efficient in what they're doing. I put it on here just because it's starting to gain a lot of traction, starting to really, you're starting to hear about it more and more. Convergence AI, this is the AI that Salesforce spent billions of dollars on, probably overpaid for it, but saving 4,000 jobs, which that, according to Benioff, he came out and said in one of his statements, well, maybe he's finding ways to make up for that investment. again, it's agentic. So one of the things that is a term that you're seeing around a lot of these AI platforms is these agentic platforms, which it's just simply these agents are running in the background, and you don't need a human in the loop in these agents. So in Benioff's example, he was able to take the headcount out of customer support. So he's got all of these agents that are following up on customer support items just in the background and not requiring humans. Another thing that Benioff said was that these agentic AI workflows are now following up on sales leads. So if you're going into Salesforce.com, and this is something that anyone can do in their website, you can have an agentic AI automatically just follow up on sales leads that may come in, your contact us form or your schedule a demo form. You have agentic AI that now can just be geared to go ahead and schedule that demo or get exactly. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Evan, that's a good point. So if we think about a CRM platform I'll call it web automation platform like HubSpot, we take these platforms and we put in workflows so that if I get an inquiry on the website, then I immediately reply with an email. And we build these workflows that automate. We build them manually. If this happens, then do this. And so there's a fine line between automation and AI, artificial automation. And so we're submitting that we're going from if then. I build all these workflows, this hierarchical chart, call it programming, call it scripting, call it workflows, and we start automating that. And that says that when an inquiry comes in, I'll scan for keywords, and based on the keywords, I'll build a response. That's what we're saying, right?
That's right. Yeah. So Perplexity is a AI native search engine. So it works similarly to ChatGPT, and it's kind of the darling right now. Everybody's watching Perplexity to see who's going to acquire it. There was a thought at some point that Apple might end up buying it, but there was a ruling, a judge ruled that Google could continue to pay Apple, all of this money to effectively continue to use Google, and so who knows what's going to happen. But Perplexity is it's conversational, and it's independent for now. So again, it's for those that perhaps appreciate using AI outside of what I would say kind of the big three, which is your Microsoft Copilot, your Gemini, and your ChatGPT. So if you want to go to the next, Amazon Bedrock, I threw that in here just because AWS is a highly used platform for data and compute. Amazon Bedrock is the AI embedded within AWS that's allowing, again, developers and various other coding uses to automatically commission certain workloads in AWS. It's very similar to agentic AI. It's just operating over the infrastructure that's running. I put Copilot on here last just because I feel like it's a good one to sort of talk about. It's something I know you're going to be talking about here shortly. It's embedded within all of Microsoft's tools. So I put here, it's at massive scale. Obviously, you have Microsoft, which could be said to lead in the productivity suite. So you think about Word and Excel and PowerPoint and all of the different 365 tools that Microsoft publishes or makes. It's embedding Copilot throughout. And so if folks are using Outlook and they're going into Copilot, Copilot can do all sorts of things in Outlook. If you're using Word, Copilot's going to prompt you. How do you want to start something? If you're writing a letter, or if you're writing an invoice, or whatever it is that you're writing. So Copilot is, I would say, within the enterprise, sort of your leading AI. It's got some limitations. It's not. I still feel that it lags in terms of some of the problem solving capabilities. It tends to require a human in the loop to kind of put things together, but it's still definitely a force to be reckoned with, just given how much Microsoft has put behind this, both from the investment as well as a deployment across all of its tools.
Sure. And Evan, I mean, relative to Copilot, I always look at the march of technology. Technology marches on. If you go back 30 years ago, I worked at IBM and we had a specialist that built foils. Yeah, foils. And then eventually tools came out where you could actually build your own, PowerPoint. And but you had a specialist do it because it was kind of complicated. And eventually it got to the point where you don't need a specialist. You just build your own PowerPoints. That's technology marching on. It eliminated a job. I no longer need somebody to build these technologies. You go back 60, 70 years to the classic typewriters, 50 people at typewriters just typing. And today we type our own Word documents. We don't even need anybody to type documents for us. Technology marches on. And that's what's happening in Microsoft's world is Microsoft has Power Automate, which is a workflow engine, if-then engine. Microsoft has Power BI, which is an analytical engine. Microsoft has Excel, maybe one of the biggest productivity platforms in the history of accounting. Many businesses run on Excel. They actually put Python about a year ago. They dropped Python into Excel, and which basically says we're enabling AI and Power Automate and Power BI to all come together and allow normal people like you and me to be programmers. And that's the direction we're going in. And Microsoft's building a huge enterprise like that. They get maligned. Copilot isn't as good as the other, as ChatGPT, but the vision's a little bit different, right?
Yeah. Well, that's kind of the, I know we said top 10, but I always add one, take it to 11. Yes. I have a customer that's their sort of mantra. So we always take it to 11. Yes. But yeah, I think this is a good place to kind of flip it back over to you. I think you were going to start talking about the checklist.
Sure. Let's talk about the checklist. I mean, as you're implementing AI, 6 considerations, and I'm going back to what do the executives want? What are the business objectives, the outcomes, the results? And the results are like we've been talking about, what gaps can I fill? ERP, PSA systems, systems where if I put in a customer's name here, it also feeds over to the invoicing. That saves typing from here to there, warehousing integration. It's all filling gaps and automating gaps. So that's all we're trying to do is say, do we have a tool here, AI, that can help me automate? As we do that, let's consider the cybersecurity ramifications. And we've all heard it in an Office 365 environment. If I turn on Copilot, can it find information it shouldn't find? HR information, maybe payroll information. Oh boy, I need to make sure that this powerful search engine, this AI engine, is contained and also contains information inside my company, doesn't dump it out in public. So we have to consider the cybersecurity ramifications. Data integrity for a small business. We are a small business here at i3 Business Solutions. Do we need a data analyst, a data management specialist? No, we don't. And maybe we do. Because suddenly, as we automate and empower technology to actually make decisions itself, we need to have very sharp data. So starting to watch how all this comes together can get a little bit complicated. We can just turn it on and hope, or we can make sure that we've got integrity in our data. And then agentic applications. I'll talk a little bit about this with some stories, but this is where it's going. And I submit, much like I've submitted for years with CRM, the first place to look for a CRM platform is the one that integrates to your current accounting system, your current ERP, DRP, PSA, professional services automation, the system that runs your business. If you've got something that integrates, good. I rail against islands of information, so integrated information. And that's where I think that, and Evan and I will submit that, AI is going to show up. That's where you're crossing the chasm from, oh boy, we've got a fun tool that does really cool things, to, boy, we've got an agent that integrates directly into our system and spins the wheel faster. And then we have to consider the implications on people and process. I mean, 65 studies have shown that 65% of our employees, including I3, but in general, do not like change. So when we change processes, when we introduce new technology, the implications for people are substantial. We must consider this as we move forward. And then governance and compliance. If there are compliance demands on my industry, then I need to make sure that as I implement this, I stay in alignment with that compliance. So we need to govern, we need to manage this new environment. A couple stories for you here. And if you've got questions, put them in chat. We'll wrap in the next 3 minutes. Number one, we are implementing an automation AI client experience tool that we'll be rolling out in October here at I3. And I really, as we looked at it, I challenged, this isn't AI. And a number of specialists that are more technical than me said, yeah, this is AI. And so it is a tool that looks at information and empowers us to move faster at I3 Business Solution. It is an agentic solution specific for our industry. And so that is part of what I'm looking at. And we are implementing in October here at I3. And so as I look at that, I can look at 45 people at I3 at $30 a user Copilot. And I'm saying, if you want to use Copilot at I3, show me how you're using AI today. So the return on investment for me is very specific and narrow. Show me the business use rather than this is fun. I know of a peer in the industry with 300 users, and they actually bought ChatGPT they bought ChatGPT Enterprise for all their users. And they are getting a report every week of exactly what prompts were used by what user. So they're saying there's something here, and we should be presenting it to our customers or clients. How would we use it internally? And they're spending that money to do that analysis. And they're looking very specifically at how it's used. So I'm just saying that as I look at business results, where is the efficiency, the productivity? Is it just in spending money and saying, good luck, what does it do? No, and at I3, it is an agentic solution. So we're wrapping up here, 1 minute to go. And our next webinar podcast will be on September 24 at 11 a.m. We'll have Melissa Berry. She is the president and managing partner at IT Solutions Curie in Modesto, California, talking about using unlicensed Microsoft Copilot for business productivity. Like I said, you want me to spend money on Copilot for you? How are you using Copilot today? In fact, I was licensed. We have 6 licenses for Copilot here. I used it for about 3 to 6 months, and I said, take mine away, give it to somebody else. I want to see what I'm missing. And so far, in the last month, not the end of the world for me. So the productivity enhancement at this moment, for me, in general, is questionable. Any closing comments, Evan?
I mean, I think your point here around encourage, find skunk work opportunities. I love that sort of word. It's very empowering for teams to feel like they have the ability to start to innovate in their areas. And I just sort of said, look, people, we need to be using this every day. And then you just sort of let them run with it. I think that the encouraging that we can be is to make sure that people feel that they are a part of the project. They are part of the implementation. If it's, I'm very much kind of a grassroots leader, and so if they feel like they are bringing it or they're bringing the ideas, I think it's going to help that chasm crossing.
Yeah, exactly. So that is the mandate. What's the action item? What's the takeaway here? Yes, encourage the use of AI products in your organization. And in that context, be aware of shadow IT. Your users are probably using it already. Are they logged in? Is it secure? Let's figure that out. And then understand and measure what's the productivity improvements of it. We are making an investment. We have measurements that we can look at. Are we improving these specific metrics? And in that context, protect your organization. We will wrap this event. We're a minute long. We can stay another few minutes and we'll see if there are any questions, but automate, use AI tech tools, especially agentic, look at it. i3 can help. Email me, call me, track somebody down from i3. We can help. That's a wrap on the podcast, the webinar. Thank you, Evan. We will stay a few minutes longer. If there's any questions, we'll open it up for questions. And Jody, any questions at all? Or Brittany?
So I see one just here that I'll touch on because I brought up the Salesforce example. Do you think more companies will use AI to create a virtual workforce and lay off actual humans? So Benioff was very clear that it wasn't a layoff, that these individuals were deployed elsewhere into sales and service and other places in the business. So they were just removed from the customer support organization. At least that's what he said in his statement on it. But yes, I mean the question here, I think it kind of has an obvious yes. I think the more that these agentic AI is getting deployed into some very simple, and sometimes it could even be fairly complicated to take the human out of the loop. I mentioned, just imagine if you could have an agent follow up on sales leads that you get from your website or from events, the webinar. Mike, what if i3 had an agent that followed up with all the sales leads that you're going to get from this? And right now you have someone in your sales or in your marketing department that has to do that. Well, you get an agent. Do you need that same person working on the same, or are there higher functioning or higher function services that they can do for your business? But I think it is a fairly obvious yes that more companies are going to start adopting these agents to take those routine tasks off of people's plates.
Yeah, and what was the question specifically?
Well, just do you think more companies will use AI to create a virtual workforce and lay off actual humans?
Yeah, and so my answer to that is this is the history of free enterprise markets and worldwide markets is disruptive innovation. I actually worked at IBM when we could not take an order via fax. And so we had to physically go out and get a signature, drive an hour and a half, get a physical signature, put it in a FedEx envelope and ship it to corporate. Did it replace jobs when they finally allowed us to turn on a fax machine? And then did it replace jobs when we could actually have a client fax the order to us and then we could fax it to corporate? Yeah, I think it did. Did the automobile disrupt the horse and buggy industry? Yes, it did. So this is the natural progression of technology. We sold big, expensive accounting system, ERP systems in the 90s, and it automated things that people were handwriting. So this is the history of technology. And so, yes, it will displace, it'll change jobs, but I believe that opportunity just reigns for new opportunities in this economy.
There's a question in here around the what are our thoughts on the news from yesterday that Microsoft is going to start using Anthropic AI. We talked about Claude, which is from Anthropic earlier, in its shift from OpenAI. So they're going to blend what they're the largest investor or I guess money behind OpenAI. I think they've invested something like $13 billion. Microsoft has in OpenAI so far. So a lot of the Microsoft AI tools are primarily using the stuff that they acquire from OpenAI. And now the news just broke yesterday that Anthropic they're going to blend Anthropic in there. It could be that they're just falling behind on their own model. They've been trying to create some DeepSeek models and working through similar stuff that Amazon Bedrock is trying to do with AWS. They're trying to work it into Azure. So it could be that they're falling behind their schedule on that. I don't know. It could be that they just are finding that the dollars being spent across a couple of different models makes more sense. Like that's typically what businesses like yours and mine do. We don't want to get our chips all behind one particular platform. So it'll be interesting. I do agree. Someone wrote in here that it could be a concern because you're going to get inconsistency in now Microsoft's AI, depending on if OpenAI and Anthropic are bumping into each other. And I agree. I mean, I think it's going to be interesting to see. Microsoft has a reputation for putting some things out in the market before it's completely polished and completely ready. And so it could be that that's kind of what we're getting prepared for is Microsoft in doing this. It's going to get worse before it gets better, possibly.
Sure. Yes. We're pretty Microsoft centric here, but we're going to look at solutions that move our organization forward faster, improve the client experience, improve the performance of i3 Business Solutions. So I would submit Microsoft's doing the same thing. There's a business case for this, and they're executing on that business case.
There's a question in here, that I actually think is an interesting question, but I'm going to take it perhaps in a little bit of a different direction. What's the best way to have verbal conversations with ChatGPT rather than typing? So there's a setting that you just turn on in ChatGPT, and you can speak and give it a voice. And this is what your friend did. I think it was with Gemini. But there's another thing here that I want to just raise, which is use AI to learn how to use AI. So that's the amazing thing about AI, or how whatever system, if you have a CRM system like HubSpot and you don't know how to use every single feature, use AI to bring your skills up to where you can use HubSpot or any system. It's a great use case for AI. I don't know how to do X. Teach me how to do this. And it's a wonderful way to get a benefit from AI and improve your own skills.
AI is your friend. AI is your consultant. Very good. I think that's a wrap, Evan.
Okay.
Thank you for your vast knowledge, and go ye therefore and automate.
Well done. Cheers.